Hello, this is Bruce Anderson. I've had pulmonary fibrosis the past 8 years. In March of 2018, I went into the hospital, and 2 days later, I came out requiring oxygen 24/7. I was on a steep learning curve on how to use supplemental oxygen. I found that my pulmonologist was not going to teach me. The oxygen company simply had someone drop off the concentrator and tubing and left me on my own to figure it out, only after a brief superficial orientation. It's been a long, drawn-out process to adapt to my ever-increasing oxygen needs, from smaller portable concentrators to larger home concentrators, and from smaller oxygen tanks to larger oxygen tanks on a travel card. This is my opportunity to share what I've learned in a way that's hopefully will be helpful to those who are just beginning. I have a friend with me that I've invited to join me in the narration. Meet AI friend Matthew. Say hello, Matthew.
Well, hello folks. I'm looking forward to being Bruce's partner in this presentation. We are going to provide a lot of information in a short time. We suggest that you watch this video all the way through to the end one time, and then start taking notes on the second viewing. You can formulate questions and begin a to-do list. You can also start and stop the video in order to fully capture the information. So, with that, let's begin. Here are all of the subjects we're going to cover in this video. I'm using the term overview because it is just that. You have to do your research on each of these areas in order to get an in-depth understanding. Just realize that this is a start. Okay, as we proceed through this, there are a couple of things I want you to be aware of. Number 1. I, Matthew, am speaking for Bruce. So when I use the first person, it is Bruce's language. Number 2, I'm not providing medical advice. Because I'm not a doctor or a specialist in pulmonary medicine. 3. I'm speaking from my personal experience. And when I say it is good to do this, it's only because in my circumstances, it seemed appropriate. It may not be appropriate for you. And just be aware of that. Pulmonary fibrosis is a very complicated disease. My case may be different than yours. And if you have another lung condition such as COPD, my advice may not be applicable. In the early months of 2020, I pioneered the initiative of Pulmonary Success Circles, a network of support for individuals who gather in small, intimate groups weekly to share their experiences and challenges. This initiative has grown to include over 60 participants, offering mutual aid and encouragement. Through our collective journey, we've uncovered a critical insight: many individuals with pulmonary fibrosis are not using supplemental oxygen as needed, neglecting the crucial aspect of maintaining their oxygen saturation at healthy levels. Our experience underscores a vital health reality: allowing oxygen saturation below 88% for extended times can cause harm to your body. This not only exacerbates lung fibrosis but also leads to pulmonary hypertension, which can precipitate into congestive heart failure. To avert these grave health risks, it is imperative to vigilantly maintain your oxygen levels within the normal range. We've established an oxygen saturation threshold of 92% as our standard. Your mission, should you choose to embrace it, is to consistently keep your oxygen saturation at or above 92%. My pulmonologist attributes my prolonged life to my commitment to oxygen therapy. I urge you to be equally conscientious in managing your oxygen levels for the sake of your health and well-being. Let's talk about one of the first obstacles that you could encounter around using oxygen: shame. I was fortunate in the sense that I don't have a shame-based personality, and so oxygen usage around the community and restaurants and shopping and so forth didn't bother me at all. But there are some individuals who adopt a shame-based mentality around oxygen, as if it was different than maybe being on crutches. And this limits their mobility and ability to lead a normal life. And it also could have a negative impact on their oxygen saturation levels. So, the bottom line here is that if you have any sense of shame associated with people observing you using supplemental oxygen, get over it, and get over it quickly. Because it does not serve you in any way. My experience is that other people don't have an issue with it. By the way, Another fear that some folks have expressed is that oxygen will make you dependent. Well, you, like everyone else on the planet, are already dependent on oxygen. There is no addiction issue. I would like to begin by providing an overview of my oxygen requirements over the past 7 years. My need for supplemental oxygen began in 2016 for airline flights. However, it wasn't until 2018, following an ablation procedure that damaged my phrenic nerve, which controls the diaphragm, that I required oxygen continuously, 24/7. My condition remained stable with a requirement of 4 liters per minute until December 2022. Throughout 2023, there has been a steady increase in the need for additional oxygen flow to compensate for my deteriorating pulmonary function. As of January 2024, I now require 15 to 18 liters to maintain my oxygen saturation level at an appropriate level. Now, let's dive into the saga of how I've kept up with the ever-growing demands for supplemental oxygen. When stepping out, I initially embraced the portable oxygen concentrator, which was my trusty ally for plane rides and leisurely strolls. But come 2018, after the ablation procedure accident which knocked out my right diaphragm, it obliged to level up to oxygen tanks, because my portable buddy just couldn't keep up with my lungs' lofty needs. I opted for the sleek, 24-inch M6 tank for my social escapades, whether it was a covert operation to the grocery store or a date night out at the cinema. I'd switch on the high-flow jets when trekking from my car to a dinner table. But once I landed at my destination, I'd throttle down the flow to conserve oxygen. Those M6 tanks and I became quite the dynamic duo, adjusting our strategy to the rhythm of my day. The plot thickened as I upgraded to the larger, wieldy tanks, my new partners in crime 2023. I was able to use a POC for my last airplane trip in 2021. At home, I initially used a 5-liter home concentrator, and then had to upgrade to a 10-liter home concentrator and then a 5 and a 10-liter and then eventually 2 10s. I'm not going into all of the machinations on how to orchestrate getting these concentrators, enough to say that you really have to be on top of it and demanding of providers in order to get what you need. We will, however, go into more detail about home concentrators and portable oxygen concentrators in a minute. This device is an oximeter. It measures the oxygen saturation level in your blood by being placed on your finger, providing a reading of that percentage as well as your pulse rate. You should carry it with you at all times as you move around, allowing you to correlate how your body feels with your actual saturation levels. Sometimes, anxiety can make you feel out of breath, suggesting a low oxygen level, but upon using the oximeter, you may find you are above 92%. Conversely, there may be times when you are below 92% and not realize it. Therefore, it's important to periodically check your oximeter to determine your saturation level. This information enables you to adjust the flow settings on your portable oxygen concentrator, oxygen tank, or home concentrator as needed. There is an app that will allow you to keep a history of readings. Strong muscles maintain and increase the saturation of oxygen in the blood. Regular exercise and strength training increases muscle mass, which in turn increases the number of capillaries supplying oxygen, improving overall oxygen delivery throughout the body. For those with weakened lungs, it is crucial to keep muscles fit to enhance oxygen delivery. Keep your saturation between 92 to 99. Change your flow rate to keep it in this range. It's important not to let anxiety about low oxygen levels demotivate you from exercising. While there may be times when oxygen saturation falls below 88% for brief moments when exercising, this is generally acceptable. It is the sustained and regular episodes of desaturation that should be avoided. Keep monitoring with the oximeter and increase flow if needed. The important message here is that exercising on your own or through pulmonary rehabilitation is vitally important in managing lung disease. You must keep moving. In 2017, took a pulmonary function test and I found out needed to have oxygen support while traveling in an aircraft because the cabin pressure is at 8,000 feet. I used the Inogen portable concentrator for several years. My last flight in 2021 required continuous flow and therefore I got a wheel-mounted personal oxygen concentrator with 3-liter continuous flow. Let me emphasize that pulse flow on the portable concentrator is not equivalent to continuous flow. Home oxygen concentrators filter incoming air to remove nitrogen, dust, bacteria, and other particulates. The extracted nitrogen and other gases are expelled, while the concentrated oxygen is delivered to the user via a nasal cannula. This process enables the individual to inhale a constant stream of oxygen with a purity level close to 90%. The output of oxygen machines is measured in liters per minute, commonly classified as low flow or high flow, with capacities of 5 or 10 liters per minute, respectively. For home oxygen therapy, a medical diagnosis that indicates the need for supplemental oxygen is required. Following this, your doctor will prescribe the appropriate oxygen dosage. It is crucial not to alter your oxygen intake without medical advice, as both insufficient and excessive oxygen can pose health risks. However, for patients with pulmonary fibrosis, the concern about excess oxygen is generally less than for those with COPD. Adjusting oxygen flow rates based on activity level can be essential. For example, while seated, I might use 3 liters per minute, but this may increase to 5 liters per minute when moving around the house. During exercise, such as weightlifting, the requirement could rise to 7 liters per minute. Therefore, I adjust the flow on my portable and home concentrators according to my activity and the oxygen saturation readings from my oximeter. If my oxygen levels fall below 92%, I either increase the flow to compensate or reduce my activity to conserve oxygen. If you have COPD, especially if you retain carbon dioxide, it is vital to consult with your pulmonologist regarding your oxygen levels. Oxygen tanks are marvels of technology that enable a semblance of normal life. They grant the freedom to go out to restaurants, theaters, picnics, shopping, even hike, and swim. They offer mobility, and I strongly recommend learning about them to fully benefit. There are a variety of oxygen tanks available. I use the M9, which can be carried in a backpack or canvas case. Later, when I needed more oxygen flow, I switched to the E-tank, which comes with wheels for easy transport. Let's talk about regulators, the devices that allow high-pressured oxygen to be released from the tank to the tubing that we can access through a cannula to your nose. I have used 2 types of regulators: continuous flow and pulse. Continuous flow regulators allow a continuous flow of oxygen to be delivered to the user. They can be set to deliver a specific number of liters per minute, LPM, according to the user's needs. Settings vary and can range from 2 LPM to 25 LPM. They are often used at home or in stationary settings where constant oxygen flow is required. Pulse dose regulators deliver oxygen only when the user inhales, which is detected by the regulator. This can significantly conserve oxygen, making the tanks last longer between refills. Settings are 1 to 5 but do not correspond to LPM. Some regulators can deliver both pulse and continuous flow. I, like most people, started with pulse flow and then moved to continuous flow as my needs increased. Both regulators can be used with any tank. However, the continuous flow releases the air in such a high volume that a small tank, such as an M6, will not last very long. You can adjust the flow setting for either one based on your level of activity and your oxygen saturation level as measured by your oximeter. On a related topic, shoulder-carried personal oxygen concentrators use only pulse flow. Wheel-mounted POCs can go to 3 LTM continuous flow. Pairing to go out with oxygen tanks, either carried or on a cart, you need to know how to attach regulators to oxygen tanks. Here are the instructions to attaching the regulator onto the oxygen tank.
This is a regulator that attaches onto the oxygen tank. This gauge shows how much oxygen is left in the tank. Green is full and red is empty. This control lets you adjust the flow of oxygen to the prescribed liters per minute. This oxygen outlet is where you connect the nasal cannula. This is a cylinder wrench. You will use it to open and close the valve and tighten the regulator. Turn on the tank by turning the valve on top to the left with the cylinder wrench. Watch to see that dial moves up. Turn the control to the prescribed oxygen flow and be sure to listen and feel for the oxygen flow before attaching the nasal cannula. When you're not using the oxygen tank, turn off the oxygen flow and turn off the tank by turning the valve on top back to the right with the cylinder wrench. Turn on the control and let the oxygen run so the dial returns to 0. When your oxygen tank is empty, you will need to put the regulator on a new oxygen tank. Turn the T-handle to remove the regulator. These 2 pins on the regulator must line up with the holes on the oxygen tank. This washer goes in the middle of the pins. Your oxygen company will give you extra washers. Put the regulator on the new oxygen tank. Line the pins on the regulator up with the holes on the tank and then tighten it with the T-handle. Use the cylinder wrench to turn the valve on. If you feel or hear a leak, try to retighten or replace the regulator.
A nasal cannula is a medical device used to deliver supplemental oxygen or airflow to a person in need of respiratory help. This device consists of a lightweight tube which on one end splits into two prongs that are inserted into the nostrils curved downward and on the other end connects to an oxygen supply. Each type of cannula is designed to cater to specific requirements, ranging from low to high oxygen flow, and includes features aimed at improving patient comfort and enhancing oxygen utilization efficiency. Here's a summary and additional insights into each type. 1. Standard nasal cannula. This is the most commonly used type, suitable for delivering low-flow oxygen therapy, typically up to 6 liters per minute. Its design focuses on simplicity and efficiency, featuring lightweight, flexible tubing with prongs that fit comfortably in the nostrils. It's ideal for patients who require supplemental oxygen under normal daily activities or during sleep. 2. High-flow nasal cannula systems are capable of delivering oxygen at much higher flows, up to 60 liters per minute, and include heated and humidified oxygen. The heated and humidified air helps to maintain mucosal moisture, improve patient comfort, and reduce the risk of drying and irritation of the respiratory mucosa. 3. Humidified nasal cannula. Similar to standard nasal cannulas but equipped with a built-in humidification system, these cannulas are designed for patients who need long-term oxygen therapy. The humidification helps prevent dryness and irritation in the nasal passages, making prolonged oxygen therapy more tolerable. 4. Oxymizer/pendant cannula. This type is engineered to improve oxygen delivery efficiency, allowing for reduced oxygen flow rates while maintaining effective oxygen saturation levels. The oxymizer, often in the form of a pendant or a mustache-like device, conserves oxygen and can significantly lower the cost of long-term oxygen therapy by enhancing the oxygen's utilization. 5. Soft cannula. Made from a softer material than the standard nasal cannula, this type is designed to offer increased comfort, especially for patients who experience irritation or discomfort from more traditional materials. The soft cannula is an excellent choice for individuals with sensitive skin or those who require oxygen therapy for extended periods. I used soft cannulas before needing high-flow cannulas. Each type of nasal cannula has its unique benefits and is chosen based on the patient's specific needs, comfort level, and oxygen delivery requirements. Hey, Bruce. I have been narrating this for a while. How am I doing? You know this is my first time doing this.
You're doing a good job, Matthew. Keep after it.
Well, I am glad you like it. I was afraid I was going to get the hiccups. Moving on. Now let's talk about oxygen tubing. Medical oxygen tubing is a crucial component in the delivery of oxygen therapy to patients requiring respiratory support. These tubes connect the oxygen delivery system, such as an oxygen concentrator or oxygen tanks, to the patient's oxygen mask or nasal cannula. There are several types of oxygen tubing available, each designed for specific uses, patient mobility levels, and oxygen delivery methods. These are the types of tubing that I have used. It is not a comprehensive list. Regular tubing. The most common type used in oxygen therapy, typically made from soft, flexible plastic. This tubing connects the oxygen source to the delivery device. It can vary in length, usually ranging from 7 to 50 feet, allowing patients some mobility. I use 2 25 feet, and 2 7 feet, and a 7-foot cannula for a total of 71 feet. This allows me to get round various parts of the house including up a flight of stairs and in the shower. I use swivel connectors and some regular connectors to connect the tubing lengths to each other. Green oxygen tubing is known for its bright green color. This tubing is designed to be kink-resistant and is easier to see, reducing the risk of tripping or entanglement. The green color helps differentiate it from other medical tubing in a healthcare setting. High-flow tubing, which is wider to accommodate the increased volume of oxygen. It's typically used with specialized masks or nasal cannulas designed for high-flow therapy. The manufacturer of high-flow tubing is Salter Labs. The tubing tends to tangle and can become a tripping hazard. It is best to use a swivel connector which allows for the tubing to uncoil if it becomes tangled. My wife has learned to dance around the oxygen tubing. It is okay to step on the tubing for a quick moment. One tip to avoid tangles is to put the new tubing in the dryer for 3 minutes. It comes out supple and can then lay flat on the floor. The tubing should be changed once a month, while the cannula would be changed every week. Many folks have found that moving around the house with oxygen tubing can be problematic. The tubing can catch on furniture, and it jerks you back when you're walking. There's a way to solve this annoyance. You simply take modeling clay and put it around the legs of furniture in such a way that there's a smooth surface for the tubing to go past. You will find that you need less oxygen when you are seated than when you are moving around. You can use this flow regulator to reduce the flow rate coming through tubing to the cannula while you are seated. The tubing from the concentrator goes into the bottom, and the cannula tubing goes in the top of the regulator. This is a washer for the regulator which is affixed to the oxygen tank. They should be replaced when you detect a leak at the regulator. Keep an inventory always near the tank so that you can readily change it. This does not happen often, but it is very important. This wrench is used to open and close when adding the regulator to the tank regardless of its size. They should be kept next to all tanks so that you can get to them quickly should there be a leak. This also happens rarely. But, when it does, it is critical. There is a free smartphone app called O2 Go, which allows you to calculate how much time is left on the tank based on the type tank and how much oxygen is left in the tank. This app will tell you how long the oxygen will last. Now let's talk about connectors for the oxygen tubing. There are 3 kinds of connectors: regular, swivel and splitter. I primarily use the swivel connector because it allows the tubing to rotate and not get as tangled. I use the splitter to connect 2 concentrators. Be aware that there is a small hole at one end of the swivel connector and a larger opening in the other end. The larger opening should be facing the concentrator, with a smaller opening facing the cannula. This allows for more efficient flow through the tubing. The humidifier bottle is attached to the concentrator. Many find it helpful in keeping the nostrils moist. I found them finicky with the concentrator not working properly. I found it useful to make a checklist for oxygen in order to avoid slip-ups. So, here's our checklist for oxygen when going out. Be focused on what you are doing when managing oxygen tanks and regulators. Never leave a regulator without double-checking that the flow is on 0. This avoids emptying tank by accident. Have 2 backup oxygen tanks in car when with regulators and cannula attached. Check amount left in each tank before leaving house. Keep a wrench near every tank. The card has a hook to hang it on. When you out of the house, backup tanks should be no more than 5 minutes walk away. When going to movies or a restaurant, estimate flow rate and the time for the tank to run down. Use the O2 Go app. Change the flow rate based on your activity. When you are standing in line or seated, you can lower the flow rate and still maintain your saturation level. Upon standing, stop and take 4 breaths before walking. Reminder, your partner is always right. We can be somewhat addled and confused at times. When your partner points something out, trust that you may be wrong and listen to them. Work as a team to make sure there are no glitches. Be aware that safety considerations are paramount when using oxygen. Surprisingly, some people still smoke while on oxygen therapy, which is incredibly foolish. Oxygen is not flammable, but it is an accelerant, meaning it intensifies a fire's strength. Therefore, it must never be used close to an open flame. Oxygen tanks must be stored securely to prevent any accidents. If stored vertically, they should be in a rack; if not, they must be stored horizontally to ensure stability. You should keep oxygen flow 10 feet from an open flame such as a gas stove or candle. Oxygen tubing throughout the house poses a tripping hazard. Residents should be vigilant about where they step to avoid tripping over it. Brief contact with the oxygen tubing is not usually a problem, but it's best to minimize any risk of tripping or falling. Many individuals with pulmonary fibrosis also suffer from sleep apnea. To conclude this program, I'd like to show you my CPAP machine setup. This CPAP machine is equipped with oxygen tubing attached to it. I secure the oxygen tubing alongside the CPAP hose using Velcro straps, ensuring it extends to the end of the CPAP hose, where I can then connect it to the oxygen concentrator feed. This method makes it more convenient to link the oxygen feed to the CPAP machine. One more thing, it's important to note that your oxygen saturation levels can drop while you're sleeping, potentially reaching dangerous levels without your awareness. Your doctor might recommend that you use a device to monitor this. Options include an Apple Watch or a dedicated device designed to track your oxygen saturation levels during sleep. Be aware that portable oxygen concentrators on pulse Do not support oxygen while sleeping. Thank you for joining me on this journey. By sharing a wealth of information, we aim to empower you. While absorbing all of this might seem overwhelming, we trust that it will bolster your confidence to conduct your own research and make well-informed decisions about using supplemental oxygen. In this overview, we have covered the highlights. For a more comprehensive understanding, please consult additional resources such as the Pulmonary Fibrosis Foundation, Facebook groups, the Pulmonary Success Circles, among others. The shared experiences and support found within these communities can be a powerful catalyst for success. Remember, engaging in dialogue with those who understand your situation can offer immeasurable comfort and insight. Keep pushing forward, you are not alone in this.